But I kind of was just watching Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, and something really, really, really kind of came across to me about Carol Marcus. Now, as many of you might have seen recently, I grew up with a legitimately diagnosed paranoid schizophrenic. And I also had my first wife and my step cousin, who I actually spent a good amount of time with, are both pretty bipolar. So I am familiar with both paranoid schizophrenia and bipolar disorder. I have experienced them firsthand. I often work at a mental institution in my telecom job. So, based on some behavior from Carol Marcus, I think she might not be well mentally. I'm not sure if she's just bipolar or it's a little bit worse. I mean, I'm not necessarily qualified to diagnose that, but I would say based on her on-screen behavior, and I'm just going to show you clips from just one scene in the movie here. You know, I don't know that she's okay. But before we get into the clips or anything, just consider the fact that that you know she wanted to have why Jim and Carol had children is kind of, I'm not sure why they did. It's unclear whether Jim wanted children. The only thing he's clear about is that Carol wanted him to stay away. And I don't know that Carol was opposed to having children. She claims she loves David a great deal, but she never had any intentions of letting Jim raise him, it seems. It just seems that she had pretty low expectations of him as a father, kind of from the get-go. And I don't know. It might be that she just wanted to have a kid with somebody, and she thought Jim was a pretty good specimen. So that's very, back in the day kind of caveman thinking that she maybe isn't in control of. That she might be doing a lot of that on instinct. But, I mean, really, if that's not the case, if she kind of rationally thought that out, that's pretty screwed up, okay? Right out of the gate. That's pretty screwed up. I'm going to have a kid with this guy because he's handsome and extremely intelligent. And then because his devotion is to his job, I'm not going to let him have one single bit of contact with that child. Now, it's not altogether clear either what what transpired. Like it's just not, it's not clear why these people did these things. It's just a little, I would think that something had to have seemed off about Carol to Jim, and he might have thought differently about that. He's kind of sensed that some chicks weren't okay here and there and avoided them. And as Steve Shives recently pointed out in one of his videos, I mean, you can get and they all also established it in Lower Decks. Condoms are still around. Prophylactics are still around. So you can at a minimum still use condoms in, Kirk's time, in Lower Decks time. And then they have to have other contraceptives available. I'm sure that Starfleet has, or the Starfleet and the Federation at large have like IUDs and other birth control implants and drugs and, you know, all kinds of stuff. There were all kinds of ways these two could have avoided having children, but it just kind of seemed like that was their intention, or they just weren't on any of that stuff and David was a complete accident. Okay. It's also questionable whether she's being truthful with Jim, because she sort of seems to imply that she hasn't told David, really. Jim says that, well, why didn't you tell him? But again, I'm not really sure what David doesn't know, because throughout the movie, David kind of makes, you know, light references to the Flyboy, you know, and then there's this that occurs. So go ahead and watch this clip.
Phasers down! You. Where's Dr. Marcus?
I'm Dr. Marcus.
Jim!
Is that David?
So, as you can pretty plainly see there, it seems pretty clear to me that David knows exactly who Jim is. He knows exactly who Jim is. He has a hatred of him that is enough to attempt to kill him. I realize this is movie fighting, but if you've seen movie fighting a lot, David is trying to kill this man, who he knows is his father. Okay, so how David knows? Okay, Jim can try and play like David's ignorant, but were you listening to what he said to you, dude? I mean, he knows who you are. Okay, it's also very apparent that, again, Steve Shives pointed this out, so I want to properly give him credit. I'm kind of doing this as a supplement to kind of something he mentioned that made me think this. So Jim has no idea that that's even David. So he has done exactly as Carol has asked, and kind of just absolutely forgotten about those two. I'm not really forgotten about them, but, you know, he Carol said that you wanted me to stay away, so I stayed away. Now, again, I'm with Steve. I think that, like, Jim should have gotten some pictures, or, you know, gotten in contact with Carol after, you know, David was a teenager and said, hey, you know, I'd like to start talking to the guy, you know, like every quarter at least, or something like that. I think Jim is a really good character. I don't know that he's always the best person or the best captain, though. I think that might kind of a lot of people feel like it kind of qualifies him as a deadbeat dad, but I think it also might kind of qualify him as sort of a bad person to put zero effort into it ever. I mean, until your kid's like, I don't know how old David is, 25 or something. I mean, like, I think he's 25. It's been way too friggin' long to not spend any time with your kid. Now, the thing that makes me think that Carol is absolutely dongbag nuts is this scene right here. Go ahead and take a look at it.
I did what you wanted.
I stayed away. Why didn't you tell him?
How can you ask me that? Were we together? Were we going to be? You had your world, and I had mine. And I wanted him in mine, not chasing through the universe with his father. Actually, he's a lot like you. In many ways. Please tell me what you're feeling.
Okay, well, there you go. I mean, she seems like a lunatic, man. What kind of person would tear a guy down like that? Like, you weren't going to be with me, and like, I was going to have David with me, and yada, yada, yada. And she makes very good points. Those are all very good arguments. Those are all very good points. And then it's kind of questionable whether her comparison between him and David is a compliment or not. She might be it might be kind of a semi-compliment, but also like, he's shitty like you sometimes too, you know? So that's sort of a questionable, But then to do this to a man, and I mean, look how he's sitting there. To do this to a man and then be like, how are you feeling? Tell me what you're feeling. It sounds sick. It sounds absolutely friggin' dog shit insane. Okay? Like she's gonna get, her jollies on hearing him basically tell her that he's a worn out old man. He feels like a worn out old man is basically what he says. I don't know, man. That just seems nuts. I think the thing to do there would have been for her to kind of just, she may have been able to make the comparison, but I would have left that out too. I would have just finished my little spiel and said, I was going to have him in my life. And then got in my jacket, walked over there and said, let's go to the Genesis cave and get some food. And just left it at that. Now, I guess the reason that they didn't leave it at that is because, I mean, there is some evidence that they maybe tried to rekindle things a little bit. At the end of this, they do seem to be closer. But it almost seems to me like Carol borderline hates this man. And Jim sort of made it sound that way when he was on the Enterprise as a lieutenant as well. That things weren't totally great between them when she had just gotten pregnant. Anyway, I'm trying not to make this video as long as it's probably turned out to be. Anyway, I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts and comments about this. If Steve Shives watches this video, he's absolutely. I'd love to have a comment from him. He's probably going to call me an asshole, dipshit, misogynist, or something like that. But hey, I just this is just an observation. It's again just my opinion from being around a lot of a few people who've had kind of legit mental disorders. And I don't know, Carol just seems like she might be a little bit bipolar at the very least here. Anyway, tell me what you think. Going on around and signing out.